Monday, June 2nd, regular meeting of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I will call the meeting to order and ask Commissioner Brooks Matthews to lead the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Our Father, we do thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity we have to come together to discuss the affairs of our county. We just pray your presence with us this morning as we discuss the issues and deliberate on decisions that need to be made. All these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, John. Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, I will consider any additions and deletions to the published agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the published agenda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Agenda passes, Madam Clerk.
Move to approve the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
A motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda passes as well, Madam Clerk. Okay, at this time, I will open the floor for public comment. Public comment period will consist of a total of 1 hour, limiting each speaker to 5 minutes per presentation. First on the list, I have Miss Ava Silver. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Ava Silver, and I am the current Miss Dunstein. And I am here to talk to you about my community service initiative, which is protecting our waters. My mission is to educate and empower my generation to take action against pollution and protect our most vital resource, water. Inspired by a lifelong love of marine life and a childhood spent cleaning shorelines with my grandfather, I've seen firsthand the devastating impacts pollution has on our ocean, wildlife, and communities. Through scuba diving and volunteer work at the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Hospital and environmental education, I developed a deep understanding that protecting our water means protecting our health, our food supply, and our future. To address this, I've launched a multifaceted initiative that includes environmental education through 2 published children's books, A Turtle's Trash Trouble and A River's Rubbish Rescue, which are supported by accompanying curriculum and outreach efforts in libraries and school. Additionally, youth engagement through partnerships with student groups and clean water organizations to plan and lead waterway cleanups, as well as policy advocacy, social media campaigns, and a measurable goal of hosting 15 waterway cleanups by the end of 2025. I invite the Board of Commissioners to join this vital mission by helping host and promote community cleanups in your district. Your support can amplify our efforts, increase local engagement, and bring lasting environmental and public health benefits to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allison Sharp, Miss Spivey's Corners team. My CSI, Women in Agriculture, Education, Importance, and Involvement. I started this because farming has always been seen in society as a man's job, but I never let that stop me from wanting to be the next generation to manage my family farm. My CSI is all about breaking stereotypes and inspiring young women to be involved in agriculture. By focusing on education, the unique skills women bring, and creating more opportunities, I'm changing the way people see farming. Education is a major pillar of my CSI. I have created classroom presentations to show kids how food goes from farm to table and find the various job fields involved like science, marketing, and teaching. My goal is to show young people, especially girls, that they have a place in agriculture. To connect more people to farming, I organize events like a strawberry pageant on my farm, which celebrates one of our crops and raises money for local charities. We have raised over $100,000 since we started in 2020. I also host summer camps and school visits on our family farm, where kids receive hands-on experience, planting seeds, and learning about sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lieutenant General Walt, yeah, I can't read the last name, sir.
Okay, that's the bad handwriting. Good morning, honor to speak here today. My name is Lieutenant General Walt Gaskin. I am a 39-year Marine. I spent how I got connected with North Carolina, Harnett County in particular, is 25 years of that 39 years was spent in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And from there, all my major commands from Lieutenant Colonel to Division Commander came at that time. But I'm here because of the veteran requirements and veterans' needs here in North Carolina. Harnett County, of the 800,000 veterans in North Carolina, 20,000 of them belong in Harnett County. But you wouldn't know that because they aren't registered. They don't come out. And particularly, we have a trifecta that needs to be addressed in North Carolina. That is what the PAC Act identified as the burn pits from the operations that we had in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Agent Orange from the Vietnam era, and the Camp Lejeune water. Subsequently, we need to identify veterans, and the greatest challenge that we have in North Carolina is that we have only 150 certified veteran service officers, both between the counties and the state. They are divided because of how North Carolina is organized. 110 of those belong to the county, 28 belongs to the state, and the other 12 belongs to what we call the Big Six: VFW, American Legion, AMVETS, and DAV. So the challenge is to get veterans out to do that. To that end, as the new caucus chair for veterans and their families in North Carolina, what I like to do is on the 14th of June, every veteran could come out. We're doing it at the grill, the Garden Grill, Garden State Grill, free food. Come out, and what we're going to have some veteran service officers there to get everybody registered. Because again, the greatest disappointment, especially as I go around and talk to the widows who just don't know the benefits that veterans rate and what they ought. And my last point is to eliminate the myth that every veteran who registered with Big VA Congress has already allocated funds as if they were 100% permanent in total. So most of the things that I hear, especially from the Vietnam era, is that somebody else needs it more than me. Well, that nobody else is getting it. It is there. We need to get you registered and identified so you can see all the benefits that are available. 14 June, beginning at noon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, that brings up. Excuse me. Mr. Gaston.
Yes.
Have you talked to our Veterans Department on
Yes.
the first floor?
Yes. Matter of fact, you have in your county where Eric Truesdale, you had 4 veteran service officers in that office.
Okay. I just wondered, had you talked to them about it?
Yes, right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
One other thing too is for the county, we are having the meeting to get ready for June on the 7th of June, right here in this building. So any veterans who wants to talk about the big thing on 7th June. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Noah Spencer. Morning, sir.
Thank you. I wanted to talk today a little bit about the budget. I've been looking through what's been released, and I appreciate all the work that you've put in on the budget. I would just ask that we always remember that budgets show our values. I'm a former teacher, and I can tell you from being in classrooms in Harnett County that the teachers need help. They need help. They need support. We are losing teachers to neighboring counties. I have friends who were incredible teachers, started out with Harnett County, and due to the pay opportunities, the next county over, they don't have to move. They don't have to do anything crazy. It's not that much further of a drive, and they can go get a 10% raise just for going across the county lines. Also, the way we're allocating the money to the schools, when you look at the pay schedules for admin versus teachers, it shows that we value bureaucracy over the children, because the teachers are the ones that are touching the kids every day. They're the ones in there with them every day. And I can tell you, as a teacher, going in that classroom every day and being the support for so many of those kids that they don't get anywhere else. And it's not, I think too often we look at parents and we consider them failing. We say, they're not doing enough. And I can tell you, as teachers, sometimes we have those talks where, oh, well, their parents don't care. It's never that they don't care. It's usually that they have too much on their plate. They don't know what they're going to do. When you're working 2 jobs and then you have to come home and take care of your kids, how are your kids going to do sports? How are they going to get transportation to the school? And our values in Harnett County should really be about the people of Harnett County. We have amazing people here. We have an amazing wealth of resources and knowledge, and we don't want to lose that because the kids go through the school and feel no connection to the community, and so they leave. And then we're losing possible entrepreneurs, new businesses that they could create to other places, other states, other places in the state, that all we have to do is commit. And the commitment is to the people. So things like human services, things like funding the schools, public safety is always going to be a priority, but it's reactive. Funding the schools, funding human services, those are proactive. People that have their needs met, again, speaking as a teacher, what I saw, the students who didn't have their needs met were the ones who acted out. And we would do our best to meet them where they were, but sometimes when you have a class of 30 students, one child acting out disrupts the entire class. Now, if you have a class of 18 students, 15 to 18 students, which the literature tells us is the best class size, there's a lot more opportunity to take that student aside, talk to them, and resolve it in the classroom. But when you have 30 to 34 students in a classroom, they end up going to admin. Admin doesn't have the relationship with the student, so the student ends up getting suspended or getting some other consequence where they feel like they can never succeed, because every time they're out of that classroom, they're losing time, they're losing education. So again, I would ask that whenever we do a budget, and I really appreciate the hard work you put on it, that we center the people first, that we think about the values and the growth that we want. And again, public safety is always going to be a priority, but you don't grow through public safety. Public safety is reactive. We really need proactive things. The Parks and Rec in Harnett County is amazing. It's a shining star. The more we market that, that's how you draw people in. That's how we reach out to those kids who don't have that other support to give them opportunities to get engaged. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Larry Mitchell. Morning, sir.
Larry Mitchell, 478 Century Drive in Cameron, down in Lexington Plantation. I don't have notes in front of me. I was just thinking about our veterans. Memorial Day hosted by Harnett County was excellent this last ceremony. I'd like to thank Eric down at the Veterans Service Office for hosting this also. Just by chance, I had our Desert Storm reunion in Nashville, Tennessee. Bravo Troop, 2nd and 17th Cav. We had it Saturday, and it was an outstanding ceremony. We had 9 fallen since Desert Storm, and I did the roll call as the first sergeant for that ceremony. And 55 troopers came out to the ceremony. Many of them, after their military career, went different directions. Some of them become state police officers. Some of them became county sheriffs and deputies. So that was amazing. where their paths led after that. And we talked about the trades that most of them had. We had enlisted, of course, they had a lot of trades, electricians, mechanics. The warrant officers had a specific trade that they were excellent in, armaments, airframe, tech inspectors. So we really need the trades in our county. We have Veterans Day coming up. And at my 8-hour drive back home, I was thinking about Harnett County and our veterans services. I believe everybody that wears the uniform, like the sheriff's office, EMS, fire department, we're all veterans. And we need to participate as a group, as a organization, and celebrate Veterans Day that's coming up in November. So a lot of memories came up. It's not just the military, but it's everybody that wears a uniform, that dedicate their lives to the service of our county. So that's very important. And you got to remember the families that live with them and participate in their encouragement to serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jerry Rivas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As I'm looking at this budget sheet, I'm almost mortified. For public safety, we have $57 million. For education, only $36 million. You know, school teachers in North Carolina, they've got a tough row to hoe. They only get 10 paychecks a year. I've never understood why this state government, DOT is the only state department that get paid twice a month, every 2 weeks. Everybody else once a month. It's pure hell to budget anything when you get paid like that, but what happens in July and August when you don't get a paycheck? Now, up until a few years ago, they had divided up the teacher salaries into 12 months. And I don't know why they decided to change that, but they need to go back. And I remember several years ago, both of my daughters, we were paying for private violin lessons for a music teacher. Gosh, now this was 20 years ago. As a first year teacher in North Carolina, her salary was $14,000 a year. And that was around 1999, I guess it was. Maybe it's been longer than 20 years. But the very next year, you know, she was only our daughter's private violin teacher for 1 year because she moved to Georgia and doubled her salary. And we are losing good teachers. And we have a lot of good teachers here, and they get burned out. And it's just ridiculous, some of the things we spend money on and some of the things we don't spend money on. You know, teachers impact a child's life forever. I mean, I'm 68 years old. I will never forget Mrs. Wolf, my third grade teacher. Used to give me a ride home from school when I was crying because my daddy was in Vietnam. And every night you turn on the TV and you see people die. And you used to wonder, am I going to see my dad die? But Mrs. Wolf used to comfort me. Mrs. Brown, my 7th grade reading teacher, taught me and Harvey Bauer the Evelyn Wood speed reading method. She taught the two of us to read over 800 words a minute. And our comprehension retention was in the high 90th percentile. But yeah, we got to look out for our teachers first. They need to be the #1 priority. They should be the highest amount on the budget. And I'm going to ask, as far as the public safety budget, I'm going to ask the Board of Commissioners, you 5, to hold a vote of no confidence in Sheriff Wayne Coates, that we have a deputy who was charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, pled no contest to 2 counts of misdemeanor death by motor vehicle. I had no idea that killing somebody in North Carolina in a certain way was a misdemeanor. Hell, I was charged with assault and they told me I was looking at a year in jail. This deputy got 1.5 years unsupervised probation, suspended. The next time I lose my temper, I'm not going to throw a punch. I'm just going to run over somebody. Because apparently you can walk on that. But I mean, what kind of ding-dong dipstick runs a red light at 95 miles an hour, kills 2 people, and is rewarded by getting a chauffeur? He lost his license, Deputy Kevin Joseph Latart, 308 Juno Street, if anybody wants to go visit him. He gets a chauffeur. How in the hell is his certification not pulled? He's proven he's too stupid to be a deputy, and Wayne Coates rewards him with a chauffeur? Come on. It's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. Anybody with a modicum of common sense will look at this and say, what the F? Seriously, I mean, what the hell? How can somebody, it's a slap in the face to all of you and to everybody in this room. You got a sheriff who doesn't give a tinker's damn about what anybody thinks, and he holds the public in disdain. He holds all citizens in disdain. Whether you're a Baptist minister or a crack dealer, you're all trash to him. And he's proven that. Not only by his actions, but by his inactions. Vote no confidence.
Thank you, sir. Another one I can't read, Tammy White Anderson. Oh.
Good morning. My name is Miss Tanya White Anderson. I'm from Linden. I'm an advocate. Before I begin, I just want to say, as Mr. Gaskin has stated, in reference to the veterans, I am also a veteran. And we are trying to pull not the red, not the blue, not the white. We're trying to pull all of us together. And as far as the events that are occurring on the 7th, it's just a meeting so we can find out the needs of the veterans, regardless of what capacity they are in. And on the 14th, there's a complimentary luncheon. So we are asking for assistance, and if we can work with the VSOs and so forth to bring everyone out, not just a selective few. Also, in regards to the position for the outreach, there's some ones that are not in compliance with it. Let's keep this in mind, as I stated before, the actions and the decisions that you make affects all of us, not just the red, the white, or the blue. In regards to the tentative or proposed, I guess, budget, I want to say thank you. And no one up here mentions that. I wanted to say thank you. I'm a type of person, I believe in even numbers. Tentatively, it's stated that the sheriff department get 31%, and everybody else is 21 or 20%. I can just throw this out there. That 1%, take it off and give it to whatever is needed, to whatever the jet speed and all whatever is needed. But I believe that that outreach, not only the red, white, and blue, it's also a job for someone that does not have one. It's always someone that can take tentative care to the community. And honestly to say, I said I wouldn't mind jumping on it myself. Also, the budget for school, again, thank you. Now, it's up to you tonight to make sure it's applied appropriately, not to get the grabs. Everybody like, we could do this, pay that, put something more. No, put it where you need. So I want to say thank you, because I know you're going to make that right decision for this evening's meeting. And just generally, again, as they were saying, I am firmly going to stand by helping the veterans in Harnett County, whatever support is needed. This man right here has the resources, the skills, and the knowledge for up above or whatever we need. I am working with him as the first chair of the Veterans Caucus. So I'm hoping we can get the support. And I have nothing negative to say, because I just want to say thank you, good morning, and you all have a blessed day.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bill McNutt. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, folks. My name is Bill McNutt. I'm a member of the Harnett County Board of Elections, and I live in Anderson Creek. And I'd like to speak to the budget. And it's my understanding that the board had requested an outreach coordinator position, and I understand that that was rejected. I'd like to give you a little bit of history and reasoning for that position request. About a year and a half ago, the Board of Elections took up the issue of communication with the public. And we went over all of the various things that we did, such as attendance at all of the festivals, going to health fairs, etc., all with the idea in mind of letting the public know what the Board of Elections does, not to have any fear. It's not mystical. It's something that is a civic responsibility for everyone. And in that vein, we also decided that two of our members of our board, nonpartisan, one from each side, would make themselves available to go to speak to different groups. And we put that word out. As a result, we went to the first group that we went to was the Black River Precinct. I was surprised Senator Bergen and Representative Penny were there. Maybe they just wanted to hear what we had to say, which is good. And we accomplished our mission. We then were invited to the Martin Luther King breakfast. We attended that and drove in their parade. I also spoke at their business meeting. And I had the opportunity to meet between 12 and 15 pastors. And at that time, we proposed speaking to their groups. And following that, we did that. We went out and spoke. I spoke to two different congregations, a group of about 70 people and a group of about 50 people in the Free Will Baptist Church. I had a good response, and I had a lot of follow-up, and I answered questions for them. This is an informational session. It's similar to what the Board of Education and commissions are doing now with their quasi-town hall meetings. You want to get out into the public. You want to hear their input. You want to interact with them. You want to give them confidence that you're representing their positions. That's one of the things that I promoted. I don't think that it's going to be carried on. I'm off the board now, as long as a couple other people who did that work. And there's a definite need. We have 147,500 population in Harnett County. It's trending upward at 3% per year. And so with 150,000 approximately, take off 25,000 for underage people, we have the potential of 125,000 voters. This last cycle, we ended up with 9,500 of those folks registered voters, but unfortunately, we didn't get that. We got 25,000 less. Even though they're registered, they didn't vote. That points out the necessity for communication with the public. We have to do it in any way that we can. Obviously, it's not being done well enough. So I suggest that you reinsert the outreach coordinator position, and let's see if we can get some of those possible 50,000 voters registered and voting in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. This time I'll close the floor for public comment period.
I'm sorry. Did I hear a question? No? Oh, okay. All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you, sir. This time I'll close the floor for public comment period. We'll move on to item number 6. Discuss a request to enter into a fleet agreement with Enterprise to procure vehicles for the Sheriff's Office. Who would like to handle Madam Bean Counter? You may have the podium.
All right, so good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I know a few of you were absent at the work session last week, so we brought before you a discussion with Enterprise Fleet Management, and I just want to introduce Devin Moore. He is our current fleet representative that's been working with us over the last several weeks. What we presented to you was a proposal to enter into an agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management to provide sheriff's vehicles for the sheriff's department. Now, we can do that with our other fleet, but right now we're looking just at the sheriff's department because it's the largest fleet that we have, or the largest user of our fleet department. So right before the meeting, I placed a summary of points at each desk, and then there was a presentation that was placed at your seats last week. But do you need Devin to kind of go back over that presentation, or just give a brief summary? I don't know if we still have the presentation available or not.
The sheriff mind speaking on it.
Okay.
You have a chair.
Good morning. Kimberly and I spoke, I don't know, I guess a month ago, and she brought this to my attention. I think it's a good plan. I think in the long run, it keeps our cars rotated out. Normally, we put anywhere from 125 to 150,000 miles on them. And over a period of time, that can be a safety issue, not only for the sheriff's office, the deputies, but also for the public when you get that many miles on a car and they have to respond to calls like they do. Now, listening with Kimberly and what I listened to in the meeting last week, I think there's some initial cost up front for the board, but overall, I think it's a good thing because you will be able to get money back at the end of the contract. One of the things I didn't hear last week, but I did find out after a conversation with Kimberly, was that if one of the cars reaches a high mileage and they start seeing it get to that point, we can rotate it down and get another car in place of it. So it's not like we'll be penalized for mileage. They will keep a record of it so we can rotate those cars out. But overall, it'll get our fleet up, keep the deputies safe, keep the citizens safe.
The big concern I have, Sheriff, is I just don't want to come up in 3 years and you have a yard full of wild cars over there with high mileage on them.
Sure.
You know, that's my concern about it, but if it's,
well,
you look into it and then you're happy with it.
But what I've been told by Kimberly is that should not be an issue. It will end up in the long term with that many miles on a car.
So it would be, so through our fleet coordinator manager, they would actually work with us, work with the sheriff's department and fleet as well to monitor these vehicles. So we'll know when it's kind of coming up on mileage well before it gets there. And at that point, they will work with the sheriff's department to say, okay, you've got a vehicle right now that's coming up on high mileage. So we would either look at the territory that individual is covering, analyze those miles, and then the sheriff would have the option to say, okay, well, let's pull this vehicle out and let's either sell it now to get the max value, because that's what we're looking for, the maximum dollar for resale and turnover. We would have the option to either sell it and get a new one in its place, or we could pull it out and, like if we have one in another area that's not making their miles, we could switch those two. But the point is that we would have a better control of our fleet and our assets, because you've heard me say several years, I talk about money management. And so since the pandemic, we have tried diligently, Gary has, trying to find vehicles, trying to turn them over. And so I have some updated numbers from Friday, just to let you know, over the last 3 years, we have sold 52 vehicles. And because of the mileage and the year that they were, we received about, I think I've got it on your presentation, about $121,000. So, but on their enterprise plan, when they are looking at the mileage, the model of the vehicle, and then I think I used the word sweet spot. You said I could use that. So the sweet spot of that vehicle, when you're talking about the years, the mileage, the package, there's a window of opportunity to be able to sell that at maximum dollars to come back to the county to go toward purchasing other vehicles. And so when we look at year one, and I know some of you were concerned about the model, but that model was over 5 years at 40 vehicles, and that was to make every year an apples to apples type comparison. So in year 5, when those 40 vehicles supposedly are sold, we're looking at a return of $435,000, and that's for 40 vehicles, not 52. So, but our plan would be, it would be, what's the word I'm looking, kind of customized to our needs. Because this first 5-year period, we're gonna need to figure out, I mean, we may want 50 cars, not 40, or we may want 20 cars. But right now, just from the age of our fleet and the availability, 40 seems to be a good number to start out with to put this plan into place. And I will also say one of the other issues that we've had is availability of vehicles, or the as well as the models and the make. So we're running anything from Dodges to Fords to Chevrolets, just whatever's there and available. So under Enterprise, they're one of the first ones into the manufacturers to get in the order bank. And I just got an email from Devin that the order bank for this year's cars will open up June 24th of this year. And the reason we're bringing it to you is because of the dollar amount that we're looking at. We need your approval for it. But what we're looking at is that we would place our order with Debit or with Fleet. They would order those vehicles, and then once those vehicles are built to the point that it's assigned a vehicle identification number, then they would in turn reach out to Batteries of NC, and then Batteries of NC would order the equipment just like we currently run, so that when that vehicle comes off that line, then Batteries of NC can get to work building that. So we're looking at having, so if we were to place the order today, we're looking at having those vehicles in our yard November, give or take. Whereas what we currently have is, I think up until 3 weeks ago, we had 2 vehicles that dropped on our yard. We have 5 right now that are on our yard, but we cannot put equipment on them, and we can't put them into service because we're waiting for the manufacturer to get us or the dealer to get us the title work. Plus, we've got to turn around and take it out and have the emergency equipment put on it. So it's just a continual delay. So in looking over this and working with Enterprise, I mean, we've talked to them several years ago, just we're not able to make a go of it because there were so many things that the county needed to get in order first. So in coming back to you now, we're looking at sustainability. You're looking at getting cars at the same time, give or take, every year. It's more efficient. So I just kind of wanted to put that out. I hope I didn't skip over anything.
Can I say something? As Kimberly was saying, when the money is in the account for us, once we can finally locate a car, we've had to send to Kentucky to pick up cars. We've had to send in other states because they just won't heal. So with my understanding with Enterprise, that won't be an issue. We can get them all at one time and not have money that we've spent but can't get the car yet. So that's another benefit I saw from what Kimberly presented to us.
And just overall from trying to study it, it's really, I mean, it's really not going to be any more money than we're spending. Matter of fact, it'll be cheaper per unit vehicle, and I've given you those details in the presentation or in the notes that I handed out to you. So it's going to be more consistent, but we're going to get more value and more our dollars will go further. So.
Well, I would like to say something.
Yes, ma'am.
Emily, you need to go into marketing. I'm much familiar with the plan, and I suggested at my second term as commissioner that this county should be leasing their cars, because I knew the money that it was putting in buying the cars, and to some degree you were letting some of the citizens purchase the cars without after they're finished with those cars. But my main concern is that you purchasing all 40 at one time. Why would you not purchase the need or half of those cars, say this year, and then purchase the other half of the cars another year? so that all of them wouldn't be ready to go out at the same time. And another thing I'm thinking too is that do you have a certain limit on mileage before those cars are turned back in?
So, a few to answer both parts of your question. Why
Okay.
do 40 now instead of 20 and 20? So, when you look at the overall cycle time of your overall fleet and what older vehicles do to your maintenance and fuel, by getting 40 all at once, you get 40 of your oldest vehicles out of your fleet at once as well, which immediately cuts down your maintenance and fuel consumption. The other piece is when you talk about the mileage restrictions or mileage point. So there's no mileage point or restriction to our program. But back to what Kim said about the overall sweet spot, that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're going to continue to monitor. So if one vehicle is outpacing their annual mileage and say, hey, at 3.5 years, he's pushing 90 plus thousand miles, that's when, prior to that, actually, we would be looking at this vehicle, say, hey, this gentleman is really doing 30 plus thousand miles a year. Let's shuffle this vehicle around. Let's maybe put it where, for a bailiff who doesn't go that far, or let's move it to a surplus or a spare. Things, any of those kind of options to make sure we maximize the useful life of that vehicle. But there's no mileage restriction, but mileage has a major part in overall resale and capturing that equity in that vehicle.
Well, I know it does. It has overall on reselling that vehicle. But I do know too, a vehicle that's got over 100,000 miles on it. That's gonna be hard to get rid of. Who gonna want a car with 100,000 miles on it?
And to your point, is kind of what Kimberly said. You all sold 52 vehicles for 121. They're not selling for that much. So that's why we are going to look at cutting down when we sell that vehicle so we can maximize it. But it's all about the analytics and gathering that data and keeping our hands around the fleet and presenting to you all of the information that we are gathering over the year. Again, your account fleet coordinator and your client strategy manager is going to be with you all throughout the term of this partnership, which I'm hoping is a very long one, who is going to continue bringing that information to you all. Things that we see, observations, bits and pieces about the overall fleet and what the manufacturers are doing coming up each year. For example, the ordering banks, they've changed since COVID drastically over the last few years. Ideally, it's going to get back to something more consistent where, hey, each June, each May, they're going to open and we're going to place these orders. So to go back to your question about the 40 vehicles at once, that also has an impact on resale. So, for example, if we waited until...
Well, that's when I said that, because I know it has an impact on resale.
Exactly.
Because with the deputies and all driving those cars every single day, the mileage is building up every single day. And it's going to be really hard for the county to recruit much value out of those cars.
Yep, but the biggest piece is the actual model year. So if we order these vehicles as soon as they open up and we get them, October, November timeframe, right? And we can utilize those vehicles. Instead of waiting until getting a vehicle now, 26 is opening up in a few weeks. But if we get a 25 right now, even if it has 1,000 miles on it, it's technically a model year older, which already impacts resale. So which is why getting around 40 now is going to help when we do sell it. It's not a model year older at that time.
So you don't have no mile limit on...
No, there's no restriction to
no
it.
restriction on
There's
the
no
miles or
restriction
how
to
long...
it. So our lease is not like your traditional dealership lease.
So I see it's not.
Yep. So when you go to a dealer and you get a lease from them, what they're wanting you to do is pay down the depreciation for that vehicle so they can turn around and sell it as a certified pre-owned vehicle, right? Now, the reason there's mileage restrictions to a dealership lease is because every mile you go over, they're anticipating selling it for X amount of dollars. When you go over that X amount of dollars they're anticipating is going to be lower, so they charge you the difference for that. So again, we don't have restrictions to it because we're not going to sell the vehicle for profit. The equity is yours. So we want to maximize that equity in it, which is why we're going to try our best to sell them at 100,000 miles, if not lower, so that Harnett County can reap the benefit of that equity in the vehicle.
I hear you, but I know one thing, the equity in a car with 100,000 miles on is it depreciates.
Yep. Which is why
It depreciates the value that you're gonna get back out of the car. I'm not against the program. I think it's a great program. Like I told you, I've been aware of this for many, many years, and I've talked to the county about my second term.
Yep.
So I'm not gonna vote against it, but I'm just thinking about how we get the best value out of those cars once you turn those cars back in.
Yeah, so
I mean, either if you rent those cars yourself or to the citizens of this county or to even an employee of this county. I'm just concerned about the fact that who wants to purchase a car with 100,000 miles on it?
So are you asking, should we shorten that, or are you talking about your existing fleet right now? Because your existing fleet has a ton that's over 100,000 miles, which it is why it's hard to sell, and we're not getting a ton of money for it.
No, you're not gonna get a ton of money for it because the mileage means everything on a car, especially with leasing them or even just buying. If I'm going to buy a car off the car lot or off a yard, if that car got 100,000 miles on, I'm gonna kind of question that. So that's the only thing I'm saying.
Understood. So the other piece is keeping, especially for your sheriff's office, with the amount of upfit that goes into them, getting rid of it too early is going to be detrimental to the county and the finances. So we have to get the useful life out of it. So if we get a vehicle and put $15,000+ into it, we need to get the useful life out of that upfit and that vehicle. So trying to get rid of it at 50,000 miles, you're not going to get a ton of equity because we still have to depreciate that asset down.
So I'm hearing a lot of the good keywords there where you're saying that, we'll reap the benefits and the equity and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure anybody knows that deals with purchasing a new vehicle, especially getting rid of one in about 3 years with 100,000 miles, is what about the negative equity that we're going to deal with that? I mean, I don't see where there's going to be positive equity coming out of this.
At the end of the life of a vehicle?
Correct.
Gotcha. So there's very few times, and which is why you have your account managers to monitor your overall fleet to make sure that you're not in an upside down on that vehicle. Again, if we are seeing a driver really outpacing mileage each year, that is where your account manager is going to help figure out a solution to that to get the useful life out of it. Now, on the flip side, we don't have to stick to a 5-year plan. For example, if the sheriff says, hey, we're going to give this gentleman a car and he does 35,000 miles a year, we can adjust that lease on it and say, hey, this guy is only going to keep it for 36 months. Accelerate the depreciation on that vehicle so at the end of that term for that one particular vehicle, we are in an equity position prior to selling it.
So who's going to be monitoring this? Is this going to be another task for you to do, or this?
So through it is equipped with analytics that will come through the sheriff's department and through fleet. So we would be monitoring it through that.
So we provide you all fleet software that's going to house all this information. One of the biggest pieces is our fuel program, which is just through WEX, who's going to help monitor the overall mileage, which on our end and you all's end helps keep up with the mileage for the entire fleet, along with the equity and the value of the fleet. So part of our program is not only your account team that you're getting, there's a fleet strategy manager, a finance manager, and a ton of other people who's going to help with the analytics to this overall program that's going to provide you all that 3 to 4 times a year to make sure, hey, this is what the fleet is looking like. Here's some of the things that we see and the value in your overall fleet. So having updated mileage for your fleet and that fleet software, along with your fleet strategy manager who does nothing but look at market values, is going to help prevent any of those negative equity positions.
But that makes sense. I mean, you gotta have some kind of monitoring on that mileage, and because that mileage really affect the value of that car. So that makes me feel better that you're gonna put something in place.
got
See,
one.
I know about these fleet cars and stuff. I drove one for 25 years. And I've never seen one where you didn't have no limit on the mileage and all. But I understand too that sheriff and them is a lot different than just a company, a regular company. So I feel bad about it now. And I'm sorry I had to ask you all these questions because I'm not voting on anything I don't understand.
That's all right. Understood.
I'm sorry, I got one more. So who is actually going to be selling these vehicles?
So your current fleet that you have, so let's just use that 40. When those first 40 comes in, you got the option. You all can sell them yourselves to however you want to until the fleet is fully kind of phased over. When it gets to selling leased vehicles, we do recommend selling those vehicles. Now, you still have the option she asked earlier if an employee or the citizen wants to sell it. We'll let you know, hey, the vehicle is worth X. You all can sell it for whatever. Just know whatever you sell it for, whatever. But for leased vehicles, we do recommend selling them because our resale team is dedicated to just selling vehicles. So everybody knows Enterprise. The rental car side, they have around 2 million vehicles. The fleet side has around 750 across the country. And they're very well, and that's their entire job is selling vehicles. So they have relationships with direct dealers and a ton of other relationships when it comes to selling. So the leased vehicles, we highly recommend allowing us to sell those for you. And then, again, the equity comes back to the county, either in a form of check or we can roll into the next vehicle for that.
And so we currently utilize Gov Deals, so we take pictures and put them out. So we currently sell our assets on Gov Deals. So people kind of go out and bid for them.
Mr. Mitchell brought up something in an email last week that it was something I would like to actually see is if maybe we had an auction countywide with the things that we have, equipment, in order for possibly some teenage drivers or a first vehicle or anything like that as a possibility, because I think that would really be a good option to look at as well.
So that is why we utilize Gov Deals because, matter of fact, I found some pictures the other day back when I think I first started with the county. There's a picture of us one Saturday morning, and I think you were the auctioneer. It was on a Saturday morning, and it was just rows of chairs, and it was just a whole yard of items. So, and that became where, you had the auctioneer, you had to physically hold the property kind of thing. So as we've kind of grown larger, time has passed, we've gone more to an online platform where people can actually see the pictures, do bids on, because we've got a lot of people that bid on our stuff. They come from outstate, they come from, Charlotte, the coast. So putting it online gives us more access. So, that's something that, that we could certainly take a look at if,
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Kimberly, I would like to see at some point in time, though, we want all our county vehicles not to have, we got a lot of junk driving around out there. Mm-hmm. I would like to see the other vehicles move into this program so that we are getting the full value out of the other, not just the sheriff's office vehicles, but all the vehicles. I know we don't do ambulances and fire trucks. I understand that, but I would just like to see the other vehicles be. We don't need junk out there on the road. It's falling apart.
Mr. Sheriff, how many vehicles are you running in your fleet now?
Well, I've just got this in front of me. Right now, we got 60 plus vehicles with over 100,000 miles and 20 plus vehicles with over 150,000 miles. We got 100 and probably close to 150.
I think it's almost 200.
Almost 200.
So if you did 40 a year, you're gonna rotate them out every 4 years and some change.
Something else that we'll do too, Chairman and Vice Chair, is doing it this way would also cut down on the amount of vehicle maintenance, which would also save money as well.
What I was thinking about, I used to run between 300 and 3,500 miles a month. So about every 3.5 years, that car was getting toward being wore out. And I was just sitting here thinking, if you did the 40 that they're talking about, that every 4 years, that would rotate your whole fleet,
Yes.
most of it.
Most of them, yes.
That's what I just said. I mean, that was my first conversation there, rotating out the whole fleet. And have to get the mini mileage on it, unless you have a lease that has a certain term on how long they can run those cars and limit the mileage on them. I think it's preserved the health of the car, quality of the car, and it's going to be a lot headache off of the sheriff. Because if you lease all them cars at one time, then you're gonna have to go back and sign another lease for all those cars at another time. Why not release half of them, then wait another year or whatever, lease the other half. That's all I'm saying.
So we're doing 40 a year, and they rotate out every 3 to 4 years. We would have to rotate out 40 to 50 every year then, and then keep up that cycle.
And see, like we stated, that's just based on just a planning model. It may be less than that for us, we don't know. Because I think your presentation from last week is still on your, at your desk site. And if you look at the last 2 pages of data, where it talks about telematics and then your fuel, that's some of that feedback that we will get to be able to manage, to be able to properly manage it.
You got a percentage of vehicles up there, sheriffs, Gary's, some of your captains and stuff, they're not racking up those kinds of things.
Right.
So they can get a 5th year.
Absolutely. Your SROs and your courthouse personnel.
So that's why I was thinking, you rotate 40 a year for 4 years, that's 160. And then you got those others that, there's probably that many more that can stretch out for a few.
Right.
And I'd just like to say that from a financial standpoint, where I know we came from and where we've tried to get ourselves to, I just know that this is something that I feel, that's why I'm standing here today, asking you to let's give it a chance, because we're, like I said, we're going to spend that money regardless. I just see this as a greater power of our dollar being able to put it. It's not about rotating out, and which those are the specifics of it, but when it comes to the overall financial picture, it's more or less the same amount of money. But it gives us a better way to run this county and have consistency, and that's what I'm looking at, because it really concerns me when we have to go out of state to get vehicles, and then we're getting them from a dealer. This gives us almost head of line privilege, and that's not the exact word that I would use, but it gets us there with the manufacturer, not from a dealer. And we've been having more and more issues trying to get vehicles from dealers, and not just getting the vehicle, but it's getting the paperwork, and it's the back and the forth, and it's just, and our time, and when I talk about my time, Gary's time, Beth's time, there's a price on there's a cost of our time as well. So that takes us away from other things. So I think this will be probably the most efficient and effective way. And if nothing else, I mean, if we try it for, because we're not bound by a 5-year contract. I mean, if we did it 1 or 2 years and decided, okay, we think we can do it better ourselves, or this just isn't working for us, then we're not bound by that. So, but I would like to give it a try.
And we just changed our fleet maintenance and fleet schedule, 4 years ago, right? So chances are we may have to look at something else in a few years.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions if I could. One, I think you probably answered, but I do want to go back to it. It's my understanding that your folks will be monitoring, advising our folks on any changes that would need to be made, any vehicles that are getting high mileage too quickly to fit in with the optimum performance through the program. And then through that consultation, then our folks would have the final decision on how we're going to go with that. Okay, I just want to make sure I was clear with that. And I think Ms. Honeycutt just touched on another question I had. So we're talking about an initial 5-year contract, is that correct?
Well, that's what we're looking at. Like I said, it would be an agreement. We would not be bound by it. But just for overall planning purposes, the 5 years is kind of where, you start looking at the analytics of it. But I mean, potentially right now, I see no reason from everything that I've looked at and everything that everyone I've talked to and consulted with, I see no reason to think that the 5 years would not be a good engagement with us.
And I do know we have certainly had an inventory issue since the pandemic with service vehicles and trying to find the vehicles as were needed. Certainly not been anything like it was pre-pandemic. So, but it is getting better. It is getting better. So I will say that. I guess the other thing that I want us to be sure and make sure we're considering and hopefully have an answer for. Let's say we get into this service agreement, and let's say we're in it 5 years, we've rolled through it one time, we've got all leased vehicles in the sheriff's department. And for whatever reason, maybe the service is not what we expected, certainly would not hope that's not the case, but for whatever reason we decided that this maybe is not the best thing for us. Then how are we going to turn around and replace 200 vehicles at one time if we get out of this contract or don't renew the contract?
So you want to go? Or you want to go?
So there's a few options for that. So let's say we get to 5 years, and let's say it's in 2 or 3 years, and the service that we're providing, which we try our hardest not to do, Enterprise was built on overall customer service for the last 65 plus years.
I understand that may have been a poor example, but let's just say we want to.
But yeah, there's a few ways to get out of it in the contract. So first off, the master lease agreement is not binding, which is what you assigned to enter the overall partnership. The leases will have a term to them. So let's say 2-3 years down the road, and this is something the board deems they don't want to participate in any further. Few options is you can buy out the book value for all the vehicles, which would just be a hefty amount up front, or the easiest way is to turn the vehicles into traditional finances. So where when you pay them down to zero, we hand you the title and we just don't replace it with another vehicle. So the easiest way would just, hey, we don't want to participate in anything else. What vehicles we have that have book values left, turn them into finances, pay them down to zero. We hand you, we'll sell them for you, or if you want to keep them, whichever way, and then we'll kind of fade to black that way.
Okay, so I appreciate that. I do want us to be clear, though, that if we down the road decide, if we go into this and down the road we decide we don't want to do it anymore, it's going to be a big cost. So we need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
As far as product availability, do you have access to everything that's on state contract in a police package? All the major manufacturers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And to answer your question, I talked to Kimberly and Beth about the rest of the fleet as well. We were focusing on the ERVs because, again, that's the largest portion of the overall fleet. But yes, this program actually works better for the other side of the fleet as well. So I will just put together analysis to walk them through that, make sure everybody's comfortable with it, which vehicles we need to change so we can get a piece for that squared away as well.
Thank you. You mentioned the book value a while ago. Is that wholesale or retail?
Wholesale. So when we order a vehicle,
What I'm saying is if we wanted to buy out the contract and you said you would have to pay book value on them, you're talking about wholesale or retail?
Wholesale, yes.
Well, I think I'm satisfied. I mean, you answered all my questions, and you have made some changes in the proposal that you were presenting to us. I think it would be better. I think in the long run, it will save us some money.
Pleasure of the board. Any other further questions, comments?
Are we taking action on it?
We can, or pleasure of the board.
I think we should enter I make a motion that we enter into the agreement for, 5 years? And then we can determine as to which direction we'll go, continue it, or whatever. But I have confidence that it's going to be better, especially financially for the county.
I would second that motion so I have one more question.
I have a motion and a second in order to approve the agreement between Enterprise. I will open the floor for discussion now.
The 5-year thing, like you said, that it is a 5-year agreement, but it's not a 5-year hold your feet to the fire contract, right? Okay, that's what I want to make sure.
So that model I put together was using as much knowledge as I can and everybody in the office to try to project what the next 5 years is. But again, to Kim's point, things drastically change next year and we need to pivot some, we definitely can do that. Again, it's where your client strategy comes into play. They're going to meet with you all 3 to 4 times a year looking at your fleet plan, budget, anything detailing with the fleet. They're going to work with you all to make sure we have the best fleet plan in place each year.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Discuss the FY 25-26 recommended budget. Ms. Lisa McFadden, good morning.
Good morning. We're going to start with following up on the Board of Elections position that was talked about during last week's meeting, and Claire's going to go over the presentation.
Good morning. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Thank you for allowing me the time to discuss the importance of this outreach position. And I do also want to thank the public that spoke today in the last several meetings you've had that are also encouraging the outreach position. We'll start with a little bit of background. I think everybody has this presentation in front of them, so if you have any questions, just let me know. So currently, we do not have a designated outreach specialist. All of our outreach duties have been absorbed by administrative staff, as well as board members, which has resulted in us kind of not being able to do 100% either way, especially with the outreach. We did try in 2024 to significantly increase our outreach. Some items that we did were staffing booths at community events, managing voter registration drives, creating educational material. Public inquiries have been increasing every year, especially as there's been a lot of public question about elections in the news. We've been trying to increase our presence at schools, civic organizations, and then photo ID information and creating of photo IDs. These essential outreach efforts have impacted the timely execution of core office responsibilities. I will like to add that in fiscal year 25, we did have to do some budget amendments to increase our overtime to $16,000 as well as our part-time to $20,000. So in just overtime and part-time alone, this last fiscal year, we've spent $36,000. And that was how we've been able to maintain some of this outreach as well as our office work. The position that we're asking for is a salary grade 18, so that's a little over $41,000 is what this position is. I'm still in the background, yeah. And so if it were to be a part-time type position, then we're looking at like just under $20 an hour for part-time. Okay. So why full-time matters. I know discussed last time about whether this could be a part-time outreach position, and although that is a possibility, we do feel that full-time would be beneficial. We need to make sure we maintain year-round outreach. A lot of our outreach does occur during non-election times because that's when we're not busy. So it's not just during election time that we need the outreach. We want to make sure that we have a consistent point of contact for voters in the community throughout the year. We want to develop deep lasting knowledge of election laws in this position and reduce that strain on the office staff that are processing registrations and campaign finance. Of course, I've mentioned before that this position would also allow for after hours, weekends, and then maintaining our social outreach. If we had a part-time position, it would limit us to election seasons, again, reducing that off-year cycles. It could be inconsistent with staffing. A lot of people who want to come to work for the county want to work full-time. So if we had it as a part-time position, we may not have the same person year after year in this position. We want to avoid any confusion and the weaken public trust. Another big thing is having a part-time position could also cause a delay in response time. As we know, in the past year, things can happen legislatively in a day or with the courts in a day. If we have something like a court ruling were to come down on a Monday, but our part-time person doesn't come in until Wednesday, it could delay us getting that outreach or cause other staff to have to take on that burden. This position will be trained in office duties as well as outreach. That way they can still assist in office during off times and election season. So it's not like this person's only going to be doing outreach and then not have knowledge of voter registration, photo IDs, and those other topics like campaign finance. So they will be trained just like any other staff. They would just be dedicated point of contact for outreach. Again, I'm not going to go through every single one of these. Again, you have the PowerPoint in front of you, but it is very important to have this outreach specialist. Some key contributions, it enhances voter confidence, which helps to get them more engaged in voting and ensures compliance. But some of the main things are that it builds and maintains partnerships with schools, nonprofits, and civic organizations. We want to make sure that we distribute nonpartisan election materials. We work closely with the Democratic Party chair as well as the Republican Party chair to get information out there, but we want to make sure that the information going out is in fact nonpartisan. We want to make sure that this person is able to take on these roles and free up the administrative staff and reduce burnout and errors. And then again, plan and execute community outreach events year-round, not just during the election season. So again, this position would also enhance voter engagement, community outreach incentives, accessible communication channels, and improving accessibility. One really important area that we want to focus on is especially the western part of the county. The western part of the county is not incorporated. They don't have town festivals. They don't have a local newspaper. So we want to make sure that we can get out to that area too, in person, and make those connections and help share and spread education in that area. The last one I believe is really important is building trust. We need transparent communication and relationships with the Board of Elections and all county residents. The last several years, actually since probably 2020, there's been a lot of information on the media, a lot of disinformation out there, a lot of people questioning elections, the integrity, the results. So we want to make sure that we build that trust with the community. When they get to know us personally, they can see that, hey, this is my neighbor. These poll workers are our neighbors. They work in our schools, they work at the grocery store. These are people that we know and we can trust. So we want to make sure that we build that trust within the community. The next slide, again, I'm not going to go over every one of these things, but I want you to have a visual of why the full-time is needed. One of the common misinformation things that we hear a lot is, well, what do you guys do all year? The Board of Elections only works 2 days a year. That's something that I've heard for the last 20 years in elections. And this calendar shows you that we're not a 2-day-a-year office. We have stuff that we do all throughout the year, especially coming up between 25 and 26, because we have our trainings in August, we have early voting in September, municipals in October, municipals in November, filing in December, then training again in January, the primary early voting in February, Election Day in March. Then we have a little bit more stuff going on between April with our recounts, post-election audits, and then preparing for the possible second primary in May. Then we have the summer to do outreach events, and then we're right back into a general election, September, October, November. But scattered throughout this time, we have, again, poll worker recruitment. We have a newsletter that we're wanting to develop, all the town festivals. February of 26, we want to do a celebration of voting rights. We want to reach out to the college, Campbell, Central Carolina, and get the college voters registered. Assisted living and veterans outreach. And then in 2027, since that will be coming down off of that big election, we'll have more time to do, again, our election worker appreciation event. We have our high school outreach, pre-registration pushed, and then we want to do other things such as our unhoused shelter registration, photo ID drive, Why I Vote campaign, and we've already spoken with the library to do some library programs so that we can get out to all the local libraries and help encourage that voter education. So this is not just a 2-day-a-year position. This is definitely something where the person will be working full-time. So just in closing, currently our county does rank 23rd out of 100 counties for voter registration. So you guys are very much aware of the fact that Harnett County is growing. It's growing every month, every year. We have over 90,000 registered voters. So we need to start thinking like a bigger county. We have a lot of people coming in from other counties. We have a lot of people coming in from other states. And they don't realize that the rules and laws here may differ for where they're coming from. So we need to make sure that we reach out to these groups, create those strong foundations, ensuring that every eligible voter is informed. And I do also want to highlight that this position does align with the county's strategic goal of fostering informed and engaged citizens. And we're hoping that this will strengthen trust, accessibility, and election readiness for all residents. Not in my slide, but I did want to comment that for me, a personal goal in this position is it will help me in my succession planning for the office. Because of how elections have been viewed in the news over the year, turnover across the state has been a really big issue in election offices. Currently, out of my 4 staff people, 3 of them have been here less than a year. So we really need to get people into elections, involved in elections, so that we have somebody to come in, enjoy the job, share the information, and continue on for another 20, 30 years. So I want to make sure that when it is time for me to retire, the Board of Elections is left in good hands. Are there any questions?
Questions?
There are plenty of questions. I have plenty.
Okay.
I don't see having a full-time person for that job. Because most of the time, the busiest time you all have is during an election year. And that will run from the first of the year to the end of the year. So tell me what that person is going to be doing when there is not an election year. Because in the past years, I was born and raised in this county. I have worked at the Board of Election for many years. And off year of the election, I see no activity around there. Because the voter registration was always something that the community and the community organizations did. So if you make me understand what that person is going to be doing when there's the year that there's not an election, I might be inclined to agree with it. I do agree that we do need someone on the election year because laws in Raleigh are changing so drastically And seemed to me, all of them is aimed at us not being able to vote. So that would be helpful for that time. But what happens after that election time, that's what I'm concerned about.
So that again is what we're trying to improve on. So during even years, we do have our big elections that everybody is aware of. But odd years, we have our municipal elections. So we have Andrew, Coates, Lillington, Dunn, and Irwin. So we do have elections every year.
We have municipality elections. I
So what
understand
we
that.
want to do is especially during those off seasons, is increase our outreach, because that's when we have time to get with the libraries, to get with the Veterans Department, to reach out to the nursing homes, and get out there and be more in person during those odd years when we don't have as many elections going on. In the past, we didn't have that ability because we weren't fully staffed at that time. There's been several times where we only had 2 or 3 people in the office. So we didn't have that ability, that flexibility to get out there. I remember a few times people would reach out to us wanting outreach events, and we just didn't have the staff to do it, and we had to forward them to the state board or just send them information electronically to share. So that's what we're wanting to do moving forward. So as you can see on the calendar, let me get back to my page, in 2027 is an odd year, so that's when we would rotate back to municipal elections. And so we have, in January, our poll worker appreciation event. It's a new year, new voter campaign. So anybody that may have been, for whatever reason, just moved in the new year, or maybe have voted provisionally in the last election, reaching out to those groups to make sure that they're registered and everything. February, we have our Celebrate Voting Rights display, Share Your First Vote campaign, so we can reach out to voters who did just vote first time for the general election. But then also that gives us time to get out into those schools. When we're not busy in an election, we can get out to the schools, do the civics classes, give presentations, try to get that push for that pre-registration. And then in April, again, these are some of our ideas that we have moving forward. Unhoused shelter registration and ID drive event. That's something that we've never done before because we just haven't had the staff, the time for somebody to focus on that one thing. And these are just some things that we want to do. May, the Why I Vote campaign, Military and Overseas Voting Awareness Month. June is the library program, Why I Vote campaign, and then of course our newsletter. We want to make sure we have a quarterly newsletter with election stuff. But you never know from 26 what could roll over into 27. So just like with this year, we've had all that stuff going on with the Griffin protest and the possibility of people's votes being thrown out. And so we were having to do a lot of outreach for, am I on this list? Why am I on this list? So even though we may not know everything that's going to happen in 27, there could be a lot of stuff from the 26 election that rolls over that outreach position would be doing too. So yes, we need them during election time to help share election information. Here's early voting, here's, that. But during the non-election time is when we have the ability to do bigger campaigns, bigger outreach, and be more involved with those communities.
Well, I gotta say, I'm being honest about it, and I'm being honest with the questions I'm asking. I've seen a lot that you all did in this past election by getting out and participating in the communities and educating the people. My only concern is that what will you do when there's an off-election year? I'm not against it, Claire, but I don't want to sit up here and vote for us to fund and pay the salary of a person that's there all the years that is not an election, because you do have staff there. How many people you have staff in that office?
Counting myself, we have 5.
You have 5 staff people.
Yeah, and we have 2 specialists that do voter registration processing, list maintenance, information requests, and then one of the two specialists has been the one kind of helping with the outreach. I have my election technician that deals with all the technical stuff of elections as far as the laptops, the voting equipment, upgrades, geocode, kind of more of a technical position. Then my assistant director, who does mostly campaign finance, election workers, and then assists me with, other things that may come up from time to time.
I agree with you. I understand. I've been in that office on several occasions for years. I understand the stuff that you have there. I'm not against it, but I must ask these questions to vote and say that I'm not voting for something that's not needed. I'm not saying it's not needed.
I understand.
But I don't know if it's needed as a permanent position every single year. And that's all. I mean, I'm with you. I support you.
Mr. Chairman, following up on Ms. McCoy's comments, and it was mentioned by the gentleman who spoke with us from the board who said he was rotating off in a few weeks. It's my understanding that at least some changes to that board will be happening in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I would propose that we postpone this until the new board is seated. They can have a chance to look at the organizational structure, work with the director, and if they see the need to come back to ask for a full-time position or just certain years, as Ms. McCoy has alluded to, then we could always go back and do a budget amendment to look at that. But I think it might be good to have some fresh eyes come in and take a look at it. It's just my thoughts.
I don't see a problem with that either. I appreciate you coming in and discussing, your questions and comments. But yeah, this is something that we'll continue to look at and discuss at another time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I would like to add that the way the state is being sued for voting privileges and voting rights, it may be that we really need a full-time person there. Because the state legislature and it's just something going on now that trying to take every right a person have away from them to vote. And I'm very serious about it, simply because too many people died just for me to have the right to vote.
Yeah, and with that comes a lot of disinformation, which is what we want to combat.
Right, I understand you. I'm not against you. Please don't think that.
Thank you.
Okay, just to follow up on Claire's, Commissioner Jaggers asked last week about the cost. If it's a full-time position, it's a little over $68,000. If it's a part-time position working 29 hours a week, that usually means that we're paying, or if they're working up to 29 hours a week, we're paying retirement and 401k for that position, and that would be a little over $41,000. And if it was a part-time position working 20 hours a week, salary and benefits would, along with the computer, would just be about $25,500. Since last week's work session, the only changes that have been made to the budget were to the special revenue funds. We were notified by the state for the emergency telephone fund continuation budget. We received their total amount of $387,326, and we decreased the appropriated fund balance for that. We also decreased or removed the requested tax rate allocation for West Area Fire District, and so that was the decrease in $10,890. And those were the changes that we had made so far to date. So our general fund, since last week, there was no change in the operating budget, and so that remains at $186,987,947. Let's make that correction. And so we don't have any changes to Harnett Regional Water or solid waste.
Good job with finance.
Yes. So our appropriated fund balance still remains at $11,572,000. $1,041, which brings our estimated fund balance down to 22.5%. So we've just got a couple of items to discuss for this week, and then we'll find out if the board would like to discuss any additional items. DSS and the county manager have discussed the need for another social worker 3 position, and the county manager is recommending this. This position is needed in adult services, and it's going to be split between the guardianship services and special assistance in-home services. Their caseloads continue to increase. The guardianship numbers have increased over 31% over the last 5 years. If this position's approved, it's going to be about 50% doing both duties, and the time spent for the guardianship, that can be reimbursed by the state up to 75%. And for the special assistant in-home services, that is reimbursed by the state up to 50%. So the total cost for this position with their salary, benefits, and equipment is almost $60,000, but the net cost to the county would still be less than $30,000. Are there any questions on this position? Is this something the board would like to move forward with?
That's something that's going to get them closer to their compliance.
Yeah, that's the issue. Their standard is 25, and they're now at 31, and more cases are being talked about. The information presented by Paul Polinsky stated that if we did not add this position, we would need to send individuals to training, and the cost of that training is more than adding the position. So my recommendation is we add the position and move forward with that in order to keep their numbers. The other thing that's happening, truthfully, is some of the individuals that we're getting for adult guardians now have bigger issues than just managing their money. There are other types of doctor needs, mental needs that these individuals, they're also often younger, which means that we're going to deal with them for a longer period of time. A lot of our adult guardians, they're upper 70s, 80s, and they pass away, so we don't have them for very long, but many of these are younger, and we're going to be dealing with them for a longer time, and each case seems to be taking more time of our social workers.
And they're asking this position to be effective September 1st.
Pleasure of the board to
I'm
add
good
this
with it.
position.
I'm good with it simply because we know that there's a lot of cuts coming down the pipe. We need to make sure that we do everything we can for our citizens here in this county. So I'm good with it.
Board.
Okay. So next week when we come back together, I'll have those new numbers added to the budget. So you'll see that. And the next item is for Harnett County Schools. We wanted to bring this information back to you. The requested budget by Harnett County Schools their total budget was $45.7 million, and the recommended budget is $37.3 million. That's when we went back and added the $3.5 million for the low wealth replacement that they had requested about 2 weeks ago. So the difference in the new recommended budget and the requested budget is about $8.4 million. So if we did move forward with that, that could be associated with a potential 5.38% increase to the tax rate. So that also brings us to the total recommended budget, which is $37.3 million. And their total continuation budget, which included the continuation plus the low wealth, totaled, well, the difference between that was $778,659 that they could use towards the expansion request. Now, remember, last year we had put a total of $5.5 million in contingency for the low wealth replacement, and they have requested $3.5 million of that $5.5. So now we would like, what would the board?
So what we're dealing with here is we had
basically cover what the schools didn't receive from the state. And when you look at what we're covering in that regard, we're only actually increasing the budget to the school over their needs that they would have had from the low wealth by $778,000. When you look at the request that the school made, they were looking at $9,190,000 requested over that 3.5 or 35 million, or so about 36 million number. So we didn't make a lot of move because we're basically having to replace what the state provided in the past. So it's a large number for us compared to what's been provided. It's over 15% increase in funding to the school district from what we did last year. Because we've made that up for the state. And so it's a large increase. But the sad part for us as we look at this is that it's not moving the needle like we talked about doing. And so to really make a difference, we talked about I looked at, for me, a target of being about 3 million over. In other words, providing about 3 million of the 9 million that the school requested in order to give them at least some funding. The hard part is we basically tapped out on regards to our unfunded balance. And the only other option we would have would be to go back and make changes in the items that were requested in the expansion budget for this year, or raise taxes. And so that's the conundrum that we're in right now is we had to make up for what the state didn't provide. It's a big jump for us, but in the true reality, it's not moving the needle for the school district.
Mr. Chairman, when we look at this budget and we are seeing these numbers, if we fund the requested budget for the school system, how much of that, where would our fund balance be at? Is that 22.5%? Is that showing what it would be if we funded it all? So what would the fund balance?
It would probably approach, that's another 8.4 million. You'd be down at 15%.
Yeah, that was going to be my question exactly as well. So with the 22.5 that we have currently for our unassigned fund balance, if we were to take it out of those coffers, where exactly would that leave us, and would we still be in compliance with what we have said as a board?
That's because you got the reason I'm asking is you got your reevaluation coming.
Yes.
That will be in effect for the next year budget.
And then you got to be in line with the state.
We need to see if we can't get all the way, we need to get as close as we can. We really need to keep teachers we have and in this system that we have now and do what we can do. On the understanding that you have your reevaluation next year. You don't want to talk about tax increases, but 59.1% is a pretty low rate. So my question is, can we get closer to what they're requesting without doing a tax increase is what I'm asking.
One thing I would suggest, and I agree with you, but if you put it in the local teacher supplement, it becomes a permanent part. If you're going into the fund balance, you need to do the difference as a bonus in case something happens next year and we can't fund it.
Well, that's what I was asking. You're going to get a reevaluation.
That's
and
right.
Your taxes are, the money you bring in is going to increase even without a tax.
That's right.
That's what I'm asking. Is that?
Yeah. I think, I don't know if Kimberly's crunching any numbers in her head right now, if you want to, because yes, we have 2.4%, and then we'd be at 20%. I don't know how much that 2%.
So to answer Commissioner Dagger's question, if we were to fully fund the school system's request, that's going to put us down at 17.14%. And our minimum is 15.
Is that going to be close to sustain us for the entire year? I mean, obviously it's going to pinch us, but I mean, I'd echo the same sentiments that Commissioner Jaggers is saying. I don't see it being feasible for us to raise the taxes for the public for this year, and then next year we're coming back with a reevaluation, and also hoping to look at that low wealth funding and all again that we're having to put in for as well. I mean, it would definitely do a disservice to do that 2 years in a row. can we sustain that? I mean, and I'm also looking at it from this way. We're at 22.5%. If we're going to go ahead and raise taxes in order to make up this money, the public is sitting here looking at us that we have 22% of savings in our account. That why aren't we dipping in and spending that money instead of going ahead and tacking it on the taxes?
Well, let me say something. You're right in a sense, but I'm sitting here and I understand, and I know when I got elected in 2004, the fund balance was low. We was in trouble with the state. And then we had this huge hurricane that come here. And we didn't have enough money in the fund balance to provide water for the citizens in this country. That's one of the reasons I ran. And I'm gonna tell you, you have to be very careful how you tap into that fund balance and make it minimal. Because you don't know what's gonna happen. These days and these times, I mean, it's nothing to hear of hurricane. Look at those people in the western part of the county, and they're not even wanting to fund those people. So we have to be very careful. Whatever y'all decide, I agree with it. No, I'm not gonna agree if it's not right.
But just a few
I'm
years
looking
ago.
out for my citizens. I'm looking out for all the citizens in this county. And I realize that the schools has been steady lacking for many, many years. I look at the fact that my boys went to school in Hunter County. They got quality education. And they're not a burden on me, and I'm not a burden on them. So we all have to think about that.
But no, we still don't have a decision on the low wealth. That we could actually get that back.
Right, we could, and that's the thing I would make as a comment is, if you wanted to utilize more fund balance, we could put it in contingency as we did last year, and with the expectation that we would wait and see what the legislature actually does. Now, that is still a budgeted item, and it will count against us when it comes to the utilization of the fund balance. So if we use another 2.5% and take us down to 20 or whatever number we choose, when we file a budget, that's what it represents. However, as contingency runs, we may not need it, and therefore at the end of the year, it goes back into the fund balance. And so that's an alternative. We could, and then the school district, as they did this year, waited until basically the last moment to do the request for that additional funding because the state did not come through with the low well. So we can say that we're going to target another $2.5 million or $3 million or whatever number you would choose towards funding the school district, put it in contingency and wait and see until is needed by the school district in order to make it. And they know that it's there and can be requested. So when they start their next school year, they can budget with the assumption that that amount of money that's in contingency is available to them. So whatever raises they want to give as far as teacher supplement to their administrators, et cetera, can go ahead and move forward because they know they have the backstop of that amount of money, so they can do their calculations on what they can do for their staff in other areas without having to wait in the future.
This is where the double-edged sword is, though. So, I mean, we raised our fund balance from what? It was at 20%, and we raised it to 25 with the...
No, we never did. We never did officially raise it to 25. We talked about with all of the things that are going on, the different needs, the economic development, and then like the issues that were coming up throughout the year, raising it up to a standard of 25. That decision was never made. Because what we can do is your policy states from 15 to 20%, 20 being the max. But because of the pandemic, the issues that we were hearing in practice, we left it a little over the 20% to give us, because having to add more positions to cover, like DSS, for example, a lot of legislative items that were passed down to the county. What I will say to you is that to drop it to 17%, it's not just going to be a one answer from me to you. I'm not like that. What I would say is that it's it's a series of, you do one thing, these are the outcomes. You do this thing, this is the outcome. What I will say to you is that we have continued to struggle with funding education. We also have to build schools because, statutorily, we are responsible for building those schools. With the increase of the cost of the schools, every time, we think we're getting ahead, we're not because of the dollar amount. So we've even seen, we've able to issue debt for the school that we're, for Flatwoods right now. We did not have to implement an increase because we were putting that money aside, trying to build up and save money for that debt payment. So if we go out for another school, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the tax increase there. So I will say to you that a tax increase is imminent. I'm a citizen. I don't want to see a tax increase, but to be able to fund efficiently the way we need to, you're going to have to take a look at it. So what I will also say is that if you do vote to go ahead and fully fund this, either all or partial, the year-end analytics that I have to do from our audit report to the rating agencies, they're going to want to know, okay, well, you're streaming along at this, and all of a sudden you drop down. But that is where you as a board in our minutes say, okay, I understand that, yes, by doing this, we're going to appropriate money and our fund balance will drop, but this is our plan and we think it's necessary. For the rating agencies and those that review our financials and buy our bonds, that shows that you as a board, you're not just sitting here going, okay, we're going to fund this or we're going to fund that. No, we know if we do this, this is what the impact will be to our financial position. But these are the steps that we're going to take to replenish that. They want to see a plan. And so that's where I'll say to you, there's not a yes or no answer. But I will also say that 1% on your fund balance in the ballpark is about $1 million. So I would pray that you don't get a $3 million incident. So that's not to scare you, but that's the reality of it.
And to go back to that double-edged sword, like if we go ahead and tap into the fund balance and it drops down to 17%, and that's where the credit ratings and everything can get affected as well, if we don't have a plan on kind of bringing that back. So my question would be, with everything that we discussed, tapping into that this year, how bad of an effect is that going to be? Like, I mean, why do we have the fund balance? And if it's not for an instance like this, like exactly.
It is. And that's the reason for your fund balance, is to be able to go to it for one-time situations. So you've discussed, the state still has not decided if they're going to come back and hold us harmless for that low wealth. But at the same time, they're also going to look to say, okay, you had to do that. You made a decision, but you as the board made the decision. And you also took in mind, this is why we did it. But now moving forward, what steps are you going to take? Because, you look at the money that we're spending on economic development to bring industry in and jobs to get our citizens' average salaries up. Because those are one of the things that when we before the rating agencies, they looked at our the average salary of our citizens. They looked at the unemployment. You can't touch one thing without everything else being affected. But still, I will say that you as a board, they want to make sure that you have a plan. And yes, you serve on the board for terms and then you rotate out. But does everyone buy into that same plan kind of thing? So they want to make sure that even though there's 5 distinct districts represented here, they want to make sure that you are all in unison with what is going with the county. That doesn't mean you all vote the same way, but it means that you have the county's interest at heart. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just saying you've got the reevaluation next year. I'm not saying let's go into the fund balance every year to do this. I think we need to get back on track. We need to go into the fund balance. We got the reevaluation coming, and we reassess at that time to see what that money brings in, and if we need to do a tax increase, and I hate to say those words, that's when we address it. But I think we need to get as close to it as we can. Whatever, if we can't fund it all, but we need to do something toward that direction. And if it's going into the fund balance this year, knowing that next year we're not going back into it,
Well, I would agree with that as well. I mean, obviously for this year, that time being. However, we do have a tax reevaluation going on now. I would like to see kind of what the projections are going to be looking like for next year, and if this is something that we can kind of go ahead and, make up. I mean, I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot like we did just this past year, where we lowered the tax rate so much, especially after a reeval, that we shot ourselves in both feet. Okay, so what are you seeing?
Okay, so this is a big topic of discussion. We have started the review process, so we are currently within the first full month of the county of the review. And what that means is we're breaking down neighborhood by neighborhood, each area and rural area, and we're analyzing the sales data and what those projections are looking like. So currently I do not have a number for you because we've only gotten about a month into this, and I don't feel like what they've completed so far would be indicative of what the countywide increase, or maybe not a deep increase, would look like. So I'm not comfortable kind of giving that. But what we are seeing for counties who have had 2025 reappraisals, they have seen increases in anywhere from 30 to 50%, wow, and some even higher, depending on their schedule.
See, and that's what I would hate to see, is us even entertaining the idea of doing a rate increase this year when we're going to have to go ahead, look at exactly where we're going to be at in 26, and then look at the rate at that point in time, which may be just a minuscule jump at all if we even had to, based off of these numbers. So I feel like we can sustain this for a year if we're smart and tap into the fund balance that we have there for a reason.
So one thing I will add is that if you were looking at to do a tax increase, you can on the tax bill assign, like if you wanted to do 1 cent, 2 cent, whatever, you could assign that to education. So then moving forward, no matter what the value, as that value continues to increase, that value, that 1 cent value, or ever how many pennies you put on it, would be restricted to education use, either through current expense, which we're required to fund, or the go for debt service. So even moving forward, it would be restricted future and not come back to the county coffers.
I just got one comment.
I agree with you.
I got one comment. I like Brent's suggestion about putting aside the 2% from the fund balance. I know at some point we're going to have to increase taxes, but I'm not going to sit up here and say that it's a guaranteed thing. At some point we're going to have to, because what's happening to us as a county, what happened to us as people in this country, and education, what's happened to education not only here but in Raleigh. We have to do something to keep that educational program going. I mean, so I would ask you to look at what Brent has proposed and see if that, they putting the 2% aside, and see if that could work for us for right now. Because right now, it's tough to even make these decisions here, because it's been put on the county that we have to fund all of these schools, private schools as well as public schools. We are facing with something that we haven't had in a never had. And more private schools now are popping up than public schools. We got a bill of 5 schools in this county. That's not a ticket of thousands of dollars. And we got to have these schools because of the population growth that we have here in this county.
So even if you were to, any money that you give additional to the schools, they have to share that with the charter school. So it's not like you give them $3 million. They are not getting the full benefit of that $3 million.
That's right.
They've got to give it out to the students.
So, well, what you're saying is that all students get the benefit from it, whether
That's
they're
correct.
in public school or the charter school, and that's what it's intended for.
The tax dollar
Whatever we pay
follows the child.
for each public school child, we have to pay for a child that's in the private school. They have put that on us to do.
So what
And we
I'm-
have to do that, we have to provide that education for those kids.
I feel like I'm hearing from everybody on the board that we want to fund this requested budget for the schools this year. And I think the way that we're heading down is to use the fund balance.
Right, and that's what I was hearing too. The question that I had is how far does the school want to go, or does the board want to go? The request from the school district was for an additional $9,190,687. So the question was, do you want to go the full 9 million something, or is there somewhere in between that you were to choose? It's really, that's what I need to know.
See, personally, I don't think there's an in-between when it comes to education like everybody else is out here speaking about. Like, if this is the request, why is this constantly the department that we are not giving their full request to each year? So I would be all for the entire 9 million, whatever they're asking on top, and us having to figure that out. So we're not dealing, this is a constant conversation every single year.
Yeah.
Every single year.
What is the total amount of, okay, I know our ordinance or whatever has it, the fund balance maintains 15%. So what is 5% of the fund balance? I mean, because at 15%, we're still 7.5% over the minimum requirement by ordinance that we have, by rule.
That we
Correct.
set.
So what is each percentage in the fund balance?
Is Kimberly mentioned?
Rule of thumb that's easy for everyone to remember is right around $1 million. Now, again, that depends on, that's a calculation that's taken at the end of the year, and it's based on the expenditures for the year. So the more you spend, obviously, the more value is placed on that $1 million. So, but it's easy just when you're doing quick math in your head, just to say for $1 million, for every 1%, we're looking at a $1 million drop. I mean, a 1%
Is there a
drop.
motion on something?
So, based on if that's the calculation the board would like us to make, we will do that and present that at the next work session. And so then you'll know exactly, and we can get head nod from everybody that that's where you want the budget to land. And then we'll present that to you, and then the final vote then would be if everybody's in agreement at that point, or you can modify it at that point once you see that final number and show it to you in dollar figures and also where that leaves our projected fund balance. And then you can make that final decision, and then from there, we can move forward to prepare the final documents for approval on the 16th. Does that sound good?
I'd like to see the numbers.
Consensus of the board to go ahead and direct staff to do that. Yep.
We need
All right.
to.
There you
All
go.
right,
Your head
thank you.
nods. Thank you. All right.
Oh, and I did want to mention, Christine mentioned what they're looking at for projections, and it was asked at the last meeting, what did we see happen last year? And she sent the information to me. Countywide, we saw increase in taxable values of 39 to 43%. So that's what happened after the last reval. Town of Angier was a little higher, 52 to 56%. And the other towns were a little less than that.
But we were also at a 75-cent tax rate, and we dropped down to 59 point whatever.
Right,
So,
and that was the decision that, yes, we didn't want to capture all of that at the time based on where we were at with fund balance and so forth. The board made the decision at that time that not to do so.
Well, everybody say prayers that we get the low wealth funding as well. Coming through.
And would you like to see that amount that we prepare to be in contingency?
Yes.
In case the low wealth does come back to us?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll prepare accordingly. Thank you.
It's all a huff.
So basically, if I understand correctly, if we budget and allocate that current expense to the schools, regardless of whether the state makes it whole, we're on the hook for that 45 going forward. So that'll be additional money to the school, back to the schools, but from the federal side or from the state side.
Setting the precedence from here on out. Okay. Well, that at least gets them current, and we can handle other problems in the future. Beautiful.
Do y'all have any other questions or anything else you want to add for the budget as we prepare it for next week?
Yes.
We don't have no,
Okay.
I have a question. We don't have no funding in this budget for nonprofits. do we?
Oh, man. Well, on this bid, that would be in the year thing that spearheading tackle now.
I know we're supposed to
And I
discuss
don't even
that.
know if we're gonna be getting much money from the state in regards to that this year because of everything going on in western North Carolina.
Yeah.
All right, is, any other questions or comments? Miss
I'm good.
Lisa?
Okay.
No? No? Thank you very much. All right, brings us to the county manager's report. Mr. Trell.
Couple of items. Mention real quick that our last spring town hall meeting will be Tuesday at 6 PM at Anderson Creek Fire Station. I do need approval of budget amendments and approval of some chemical vendor bids.
Motion to approve the budget amendment.
Second. A motion and a second to approve the budget amendments as requested by the finance officer. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously, Madam Clerk.
Make a motion to approve the chemical bids.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the chemical bids for FY26 for the water treatment plant. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously as well, Madam Clerk. Do we have a need for new business? Do we have a need for closed session?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We are adjourned.